bring this back to the commission for questions. Who would like to start?
Actually, were you going to have the fire department speak? I think that, I'm not sure whether that was how we do that.
We do have a representative here, so I mean, I would think if we could consolidate fire questions, sort of answer them as a whole. I think some have been touched on, but it might be more efficient to do that.
Sorry, through the chair, could you reopen the public hearing so we may hear from fire, but also if commissioners have questions, there are follow-up questions.
Okay, reopening the public hearing for the fire marshal to come up. Thank you.
His name is Brad Fox, by the way. Sorry about not making that clear.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Brad Fox. I'm the Assistant Fire Marshal with County Fire. I don't have a presentation for you tonight, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I don't have a presentation as it relates to the public hearing.
Is the city clerk able to put up the member of the public slide? I believe it was David Yan who had a slide on the D105. Are we able to put up that slide, please? And while the slide is coming up, I believe there were some mails that the member of the public sent with the Planning Commission copied that indicated there was an error in the classification of the height. If you may wish to comment on that or add anything.
Sure, I can clear that up. There were members of the community that were asking us if the project was complying with the requirement for aerial apparatus access. Sorry. Let me back up a step and explain why that requirement exists. So if we want to make sure that we can access the roofs of buildings, obviously for ventilation and other operational procedures. So we do that through one of two ways, either with a ground ladder or with the ladder on an aerial apparatus. And so the ground ladders that we carry, which are similar to fire departments across the country, are 35 feet long. So that's where you see that requirement come from of measuring 30 feet to the eaves. So if we can get a ground ladder to the roof and access the roof that way, then we don't need to use an aerial apparatus. So that's what we're testing against to see if we need aerial apparatus access. And so the community asked about this requirement and if it was met, and I personally responded, and I apologize because I don't think I did myself any favors. I responded with that dimension that's shown in that slide of 29 foot 1 3/4. And an astute member of the community correctly pointed out that, hey, this is measuring to the top of the slab, not to the grade plane as the code requires. But thankfully my plan reviewers are more detail oriented than I am, and they did correctly review the project. And so what that detail doesn't show is that the proposed grade plane is 8 inches lower than the top of slab. So if you add 8 inches to that dimension, the total dimension from the eave to the grade plane is 29 feet 9 3/4 inches. So it is still under the 30-foot threshold. And that 8-inch dimension is consistent among all of the proposed 10 buildings.
Could you comment on other fire reviews that you've had for projects I assume that we've had in Cupertino? I know the applicant has one more, and there have been a few other on Stevens Creek. If you are able to comment on whether aerial apparatus access is any different in this project versus any of the others you've reviewed at similar
we measure for the requirement the same from project to project, so there would be no variation in the way that we look at that requirement. I don't recall. I think I do know the project that you're talking about off of Stevens Creek. Those are also townhomes. I don't recall off the top of my head if those met the requirement or not, but we do measure in the same way every time consistently.
And in terms of access road width, can you talk about, is this project any different in the access road width compared to what you would require for a comparable project in?
No, again, that's consistent, and it really depends on this requirement for aerial apparatus access. As was pointed out earlier, our standard road width requirement, if aerial access is not required, is 20 feet. If aerial access is required, that widens out to 26 feet because there are outriggers that go out, and the aerial apparatus takes up more width, and we still want traffic and other apparatus to be able to pass. So it's either 20 feet or 26 feet, depending on this requirement.
Thank you.
I had one if I could.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm curious, have you participated in other evaluations of projects, proposed projects in high fire danger zones recently? Or is this unusual? I guess maybe that's really what the question I'm asking.
In Cupertino, none come to mind, but in some of the other jurisdictions that we serve, we have several SB 330 projects that have been proposed in various fire hazard severity zones, including very high fire hazard severity.
And it sounds like the standards are very consistent for your evaluation. Is that true in this case as well? The kinds of mitigations, are they similar in this project to your experiences with some of these others?
As it relates to compliance with the fire code or with Public Resource Code 4290, which is the code that very high fire hazard severity zones are subject to, yes, our reviews are consistent.
Great. Thank you.
Hi there. Quick question about we talked about potentially putting screening bushes or trees in that 10-foot space, so like closer to the fence, obviously. Is that, does that pass fire code? Is that allowed based on the fire code, or is that creating a risk for those homes?
Yeah, when we talk about defensible space, currently and historically, we have talked about Zone 1 and Zone 2, and Zone 1 has historically been from 0 feet to 30 feet, and Zone 2 is 30 feet to 100 feet. And so the newer zone that the state proposed, that the governor issued an executive order for last year, was for a Zone 0, which most people have heard about now, and that's really for that first 0 to 5. Those new Zone 0 requirements were supposed to be sorted out by the beginning of this year, of January 2026. Unfortunately, that got delayed, and so we don't have clear guidance yet from the state on what those Zone 0 requirements will be. So I can't speak to, in the future, if there are bushes and shrubs that are within what we will call that Zone 0. I don't know at this time if those would be compliant with the future regulations. As it is today, talking about Zone 1, you can have vegetation within that area that you're talking about, 0 to 10 feet between the building and the property line.
I had two questions coming from the community, actually. One is, are you able to access all of the windows via ground ladder? Because I'm aware that some areas of the property have bioretention zones that may impede setting down the ladder properly.
I I believe a ladder pad exhibit was submitted to us for review, and we did review and approve that ladder pad exhibit. And for the type of construction of this house, or these products, emergency escape and rescue windows are required. So that's the threshold that we look at for being able to ladder.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, are the mitigations in the 30-foot setback waiver, so mostly around materials and like 1 hour fire-rated walls, and are these equivalent to a 30-foot setback? And if they are, do you have research or analysis that you could share with the public?
Okay. So on the 30-foot setback, I think the applicant stole a little bit of my thunder because they referenced the section in Title 14. And so the base code does allow for exceptions to that base requirement of 30 feet. And it lists off a bunch of examples, as the applicant said. In addition to that, if you look at PRC 4290, Public Resource Code 4290. In the beginning of that administrative section of the code, it's section 1270.07. That outlines the exceptions to the standards, and there is a clear process for an applicant applying for an exception to a particular standard. And that is the process that we followed for granting this exception.
Right.
And,
oh, sorry. Go on.
Yep. Sorry, I'm getting to your question. So what the charge of that section is to provide the same practical effect as these regulations towards providing defensible space. So the burden is on the applicant to prove that they're providing the same practical effect. So the approach that the applicant took towards mitigation was a combination of both passive and active fire protection through hardening of the structure and additional sprinkler protection, in addition to the defensible space through vegetation management that they cited. So when we look at adding passive fire protection, I think that is well documented as a basis in both the building and residential codes, because if we just look at the California Building Code or the California Residential Code, as structures get closer to property lines, and normally that's less than 5 feet, the building code or the residential code starts to require ratings of exterior walls or projections or penetrations. So I think that the mitigation is well rooted in what we already have established in other building codes. And so, and I also want to clarify that these are mitigations, and the exception process is clearly outlined. And so this is not considered a waiver. We don't issue any waivers to the requirements.
Thank you. So, you know, as you could hear tonight, there's a lot of concern from the public as this area has sustained fires before. How do we ensure that the combination of mitigation measures selected by the applicant are equivalent to 30 feet? Like, what if they're equivalent to 10 feet?
Right. Good question. So, I'm trying to think of
And that's okay if you don't have an immediate answer. I mean, we can have some other commissioners ask questions and get back to you as well.
yeah, if you give me a moment to think about that one, I'll try to get back to it.
Thank you.
Hi, so I was reading section DO 5.1 about the highest roof surface exceeding 30 feet. And I keep hearing oh, don't worry, the eaves are slightly less than 30 feet, but that's not what that standard says. That standard says the highest roof service shall be determined by the measurement to the eave of a pitched roof, which this is, or the intersection of the roof to the exterior wall. So what is the height from the ground plane to the intersection with the roof of the exterior wall? I never heard that mentioned, because the eave tilts down, right? I mean, you could make an eave tilt down, multiple feet in order to get that height less than 30 feet, but you can't really reduce the height of the exterior wall where it touches the roof. So I'm just wondering, and if you don't know, it's fine. Maybe the applicant knows what the height of the exterior wall from the ground plane to the roof is. So if the applicant can answer that, how many feet is that? Is it more than 30? Is it less than 30?
Sure. And I'll just say before the applicant answers, again, we're looking to make sure that we can get that 35-foot ground ladder onto the roof so we can get on top of the roof. So in the sloped roof detail that this product has, we would be putting a ladder up to the eave. We wouldn't be putting a ladder underneath the eave to the
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just wondering if this is actually meeting D105.1 or not.
Yeah, it does meet it. We are 29
9 3/4. It's the same.
to that location
To the-
that you're talking about. which
To
is
the
one-
eave.
No, it's both. They're one and the same. They're equivalent. And
So
what
the
you-
eave does not tilt down at all, is what you're saying.
Excuse me. Yeah, it was explained to me by one of your staff members. So what we're describing is the wall and the intersection with the roof coming
Right.
down. So the reason is you want that structural integrity of that point. And so, yes, the eave, as my architect explains to me, and that point are roughly the same height. So we get the same measurement to that 29, 9 3/4.
Okay, so the eave does not tilt down at all from the,
It's tilted down, but it's like it's a
But
very
less than
short,
1 inch.
very short horizontal distance. So yes, I'll defer to my architect. but
so
it's
what
a-
is that horizontal distance? Because I didn't see it in the plans.
Jennifer?
The eaves on this project extend about 12 inches out, and with the roof slope, there's a slight, it's about a 3-inch different, or it's a 3-inch, sorry, just double check.
So the
So it's a
eave,
4 and 12 roof. Can I come and show you a section? It kind of shows
yeah,
it in
yeah,
the
just a
section.
drawing to
Yep.
show that the eave is not more than like 1 inch below the top of the exterior wall.
Are we able to put it on the screen? Thank you.
So this location right here is I know it's tiny, probably hard to tell, but where the eave, it projects out the foot, and the wall plane and the eave, or I'm sorry, the roof, where it meets the wall, it's like a 1/2 inch difference between the two.
Okay, so great, so what is that total distance then?
29.9 or 29.10 and a quarter.
29, 9 3/4 versus the eave height of,
So the eave would be 29.9 and 3/4, and the intersection at the wall and the roof would be approximately 29.10 and a quarter.
okay, thank you.
Through the chair, may I? So I had questions for the applicant and for fire while we have fire up there. Maybe I'll start with fire first. Have there been any best practices that fire has put in place for active projects under construction, ember patrols during the phase of actual, dry lumber during construction? Do you guys go out and do some patrols, or any other best practices that fire has learned from and put in place?
So there is a section in the California Fire Code that the city adopts, and actually we make a few amendments to that section. I believe it's Chapter 33 of the Fire Code that outlines fire safety during construction. And so I don't recall what the threshold of the square footage is that requires it, but I believe this project would qualify that during the building permit application, they would have to submit a fire safety construction plan. So they would outline details like how they would provide access roads for us during construction, where they would stage different building materials, how they provide water for us during construction, and we would review their site safety construction plan, and with approval of that, then the applicant would follow that during construction.
And is that something that fire reviews, or is that building and planning, or both, or the question to staff? Fire safety plan.
If you can pardon me for a second, I was looking for a charger because my computer was about to go.
The question was, is there a fire safety plan that is part of building or planning reviews?
Yes. Building is obviously even more involved post-approval of the project, and would be reviewing essentially everything fire would be reviewing as well.
And is that a condition of approval, or is that something that you can comment on, whether it should be a condition of approval or anything like that?
Generally, those are all code required, so things that are part of the law wouldn't need to be conditions. I'm not familiar with all 80 of the conditions that are already attached to this resolution, but very often things related to building permits are not restated as conditions of approval because there's no flexibility. You need to get a building permit.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Any other best practices, any thermal monitoring that you're aware of? I know. And again, that's an open question to the applicant as well, if you're aware of thermal monitoring on these sites during construction.
Yeah, generally our construction team handles that. It's usually part of the process they go through with the building department. So thank you. It's not something that I'm aware of to discuss.
If you might speak into the mic.
Yeah, so generally that's something that our construction team handles with the building department. So it's not really something I have information here to pass on.
So I guess open question to staff and fire and the applicant. Has thermal monitoring been a condition of approval from either fire or the building code, or?
Thermal monitoring?
Yeah.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Are you asking like during hot work operations, like welding on site?
Yeah, any kind of mechanisms that would monitor for heat sources that may expose the property to.
There is no requirement that I'm aware of on any of our projects.
Okay. And then just to reconfirm with the applicant, all of the roofs are Class A fire retardant roofs, and the building is stuccoed, so that is a fire retardant siding.
That's correct.
Has staff had a chance to comment on whether Baxley Court is all homes with stucco? Are there any non-stucco homes on Baxley, or should we ask the residents that?
No review was conducted.
All right. So at this point, I'm not really seeing any further fire-related questions. I don't have anything else. Yeah.
This is for both the applicant and the fire person. Can we put up Mr. Henry Sang's last slide, his recommendations?
And as you do that, I did want to point, we work with the fire department, planning and building. We believe that the plans were reviewed and were consistent with the height from the grade to the eave. But if there was ever a comment that you're not, we would just simply drop the roof line by an inch or two, whatever was required. But in this case, as they were reviewed, we were deemed consistent. But again, if at any point something came up that it wasn't, at times during building plan check review, questions like this, I don't believe this one, but questions come up and we just simply comply with what the requirement is. Something like this would be just to drop the plate height by an inch or two in the working drawings.
That's great. We appreciate your flexibility. There's something in front of that slide. Oh, there we go. Can we ask the gentleman to come back up to the podium first? Yes, please. Am I able to ask him a question?
I defer that to the chair.
Yeah, let's make this quick, please.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I know you said you worked with a bunch of HOAs. How did you come up with these recommendations? Are they vetted by a fire department?
No, these
they
are not
best-
vetted by a fire department. We're looking through the literature and talking to various different groups. As you know, that my house is in a yellow zone, so we're looking at things by what do we need to do to ensure safety, given what happened in LA. So while a Class B material a lot of times can be used for decks now, that's probably going to change to a Class A very, very soon.
So this is kind of your
We're looking at where things are going. I'm not trying to say don't build these things. I'm just trying to say what additional things can we do to make them safe.
Got
and
it.
also things like the Zone 1, the privacy bushes. In Zone 1, you're supposed to have everything up 10 feet. So I don't know how that's going to work.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep. So looking at this list, is there anything, sorry, Ms. Fire Chief Fox, how do I address you? I'm not sure.
That's fine.
Okay.
Or Brad.
Brad. Do you see anything here that you think would improve the fire safety of this development?
Yeah, so there are certainly on the decks and balconies. Yeah, certainly on the decks and balconies, we follow what the requirements are fire hazard zone. So that there's stringent requirements, and that's how the decks and balconies are built.
So are they Class A?
I don't know what those requirements are. Maybe Jennifer, you may be able to. I'm sorry? Okay, she's checking on that.
Okay.
As far as the HOA monitoring all the open space areas, they do that. That's written in the CCNRs that the management company is responsible to make sure that all the shrubs and the trees are trimmed so that we do have that fire safety.
You talked about the access.
Yeah, as
Sure.
far as the access, that really the site access has already been reviewed by the fire department and is deemed
Right.
consistent. Fences and privacy walls shall be Class A material. They're not Class A materials. They're not required to be Class A materials.
But would it help, is the question.
It may, but again, it's not a standard or required.
Yeah, I understand it's not the
yeah.
minimum required. I'm
That's
just
right.
asking if it would strengthen the fire resistance
Yeah,
of the
I
property.
think anything that you make Class A would strengthen.
All right.
No flat
I think he means roofs.
roofs, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have any flat roofs. Gutters and protected by amber proofing, yes, they are.
Okay.
Windows and doors should be wildfire safe, yes, they are. They're dual pane with one glass that's tempered, that's required. HOA provides fuel reduction and maintenance along Stevens Street. So the HOA will provide fuel reduction and maintenance on its private property. We can't, DRE wouldn't allow us for them to do outside work off their property. And building heights below what existing ladder trucks can cover. So
Yeah, we talked
that's
about
been-
that.
That's been covered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.